Hey everyone, it's your favorite thinker and layman researcher in the whole wide world here, Alex Sloan. And I'm making this video today to address another video that I posted last week, which was highly controversial to many of you and exposed a lot of emotional tones, which was super interesting. So I want to come out and be very honest in this video and tell you what that whole thing was really about. That video and that whole week, actually, in fact, about how I went against a lot of the climate change science, and I'll tell you guys why and how and all that. But first, let me get into a quick story that I think you guys will very much appreciate. In 2011, I decided to go to Thailand, and I wanted to learn kickboxing. But instead of learning kickboxing from the average place that takes in people and you start kicking the bag, instead I took the time, and this was like early internet days for me, right? And I found this like super kind of simple website that explained this one place, and that you had to be accepted. It was more like a monastery than a camp. And so sure enough, that was my destination. I got there, and the art was called Muay Sangha, which is similar to Muay Thai, but more surrounding the art of self-defense, including weaponry. And so I met someone in a neutral space, one of the masters there, near a mall, and you know, he saw that I wasn't a total weirdo, I guess. He didn't know me well enough at the time. And so, you know, I went, and over the next, you know, couple months, every day was mostly the same. As we practiced meditation in the morning, we practiced very simple movements and techniques, and then in the afternoon we practiced simple combat. And what was really interesting there was that I met a guy. He was a Spanish guy. I can't remember his name now. And he decided to shave an eyebrow one day. And there's like 30 of us there, right? And this guy and everyone's like quite humble and doing their practice and studying, and there's not that much talking. We eat a lot, we meditate a lot, and this like blew my mind. I was, what's that, 22 or something like that, 23, 24, 24, 23, 24. And I couldn't figure it out. And when I asked him about it, you know, he explained to me that he was doing it because he wanted to voluntarily feel the judgment of those who would react. And from those reactions, he wanted to see what happened to him. So he didn't know what was going to happen, but he took the risk and took the leap to fucking shave his own eyebrow and see what would happen and see how he felt. Because he knew he wouldn't die. He knew it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would grow back, at least to some degree, in some weirder way or something, but he took that plunge. And I tell you that story because about 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine and I were discussing different topics, and we came across I was talking about Jonathan Haidt's research on behavioral science, and how he discusses and essentially hypothesizes through his research that the remedy for fear, the remedy to you know, to combat fear, is to expose yourself voluntarily. You know, so you expose yourself voluntarily to the circumstances that you wish to overcome. In other words, another quote from Jordan Peterson on the similar topic is, "You don't get less afraid; you become more brave." So that got me thinking. And it got me thinking about, you know, what it is in my life that I fear and what can I expose myself to. And I noticed that one of the things that really ties to my fears is my fear of being wrong and the need to be right in many circumstances, and how that leads to a state of reaction. You know, when I hear something that I don't quite agree with, or I think is not in line with my values, I tend to react, or at least on some circumstances, whenever I can see myself, whenever I can be aware of it, right? So where am I reacting? And in contrast, where can I simply respond? So that got me thinking, and it put me in this place where I was like really thinking about how can I create an experiment where I could, you know, do that. Where can I shave? Where essentially can I shave my own eyebrow? How can I shave my own eyebrow in today's world with a social experiment without actually needing to do what he did, was actually take a razor and take my own eyebrow off. And you know, where can you create that reaction? And it's not something that's fun to do. It's not something that you really enjoy. You don't do it because you enjoy it. You do it because you want to learn. And anyone who tells you that going, you know, I think it also leads to like conflict, right? Because in that reaction there's conflict and provocation, and anyone who tells you that they are that they enjoy conflict to its full form, in my opinion, I think they're either lying to you because they're trying to impress, or some other thing, or they have sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies of some kind. So then, back to the story. So here I am. I've discussed this with my friend. I've got this whole idea about, you know, I should shave my own eyebrow. And, you know, when you accept a challenge to face malevolence, you create the capacity to transcend it. So, in other words, you prevail over the worst that was, if that makes sense. It's a little deep for this moment. So all of that kind of came together, and about 2 weeks ago, I was, you know, the hot topic at the time, one thing that we were really discussing a lot was climate change, and I've been doing a lot of my own research. So then that kind of all came together. Was, to me, it was like, okay, I have a question. I don't know shit about shit. I know that there's a lot of people talking about climate change. I know there's a lot of science out there. I know there's a lot of people that are grappling and with that science, or they're even just holding on to that science because they want to be right. You know, a lot of people think that humans are the problem. You know, I disagree, but how do you link that to climate change, and how do you make an argument? So I don't know either or. In fact, there's a lot more science saying that the Earth is warming. I just think that things like seeing last week that there's, you know, that the oyster farms on the east coast of Canada, they haven't been able to operate because the first time in 30 years there's too much sea ice in the water, you know, like, so I don't know shit. Like, I just think that it's hilarious that people are so adamant about coming out and defending something that they barely know about, and they can just link documents and things that they've read, and it's like, okay, sure, you might be right, I might be right, I might be wrong, I'm probably more wrong than anything else, but where can I express things and see who reacts and who responds? And in the process, I'm going to create an environment where I shave my own eyebrow off and expose myself to circumstances that I don't feel comfortable with. And those circumstances are, you know, it's kind of funny, but like, even just comments, you know, people commenting on things, most times because of the format that we now have with social, it's not real dialogue, you know, it's just like little blasts of written, I won't say hateful, because I don't agree that hate speech is even a thing, but just people are ill-intended, and they don't wish your best interest, and they just need to be right, therefore they come at you with all this stuff. And that was what this whole thing was about, was like, how do I tie this all in? Okay, so I'm going to shave, I gotta stay in context and shave my own eyebrow. I need to expose something that I want to expose, and I need to have no power over the outcome, and just simply let the outcome happen, and for me to soak it in and to see how I feel and what I become from it, right? That was the goal. So I began to have, for a few days, I began to have the stance of, I am a believer that climate change is, at least human emissions to climate change are not as powerful as certain other circumstances, including the sun. So I took that stance because I knew that there was some science and some people saying that. So I said, I'm going to pigeonhole myself into the space, and I'm going to dive in and create this experiment with me being this person, and I'm going to make people believe that this is me now. And it was hard because I made a video just like this here, sitting here last week, and as I was doing it, I started to like argue with myself other points about other sides, and I had to like stop and restart the video because that's not what I was trying to do, right? The whole point was to stay in character and stay on topic and see how far I can take this point with like the limited science and pseudoscience that I had pulled together for a few days, and like stick to my guns. That one's for you, Stu. Stick to my guns, and see where this would take me. You know what I mean? So it was all about the emotional reaction. And to me, you know, what's really interesting is that there's new science now coming out in findings in biological science that states and shows that to put yourself in new situations actually creates new genes inside the body. And by creating new genes, in other words, you're building and unlocking the potential. You're unlocking the potential you, essentially, that is already meant to exist, but hasn't yet because you haven't pushed yourself into those circumstances. And I think that context of learning who you become and who you are from a space of conflict and provocation, even though it's not comfortable, it's not fun, I think that's much more interesting and a much more fascinating technique than a lot of what we're seeing today in the health and wellness space of what people are calling personal growth. So the idea of like going to a place where a bunch of other people are going to kumbaya together and then you're going to leave and be happy. I mean, I get it. I think it's great. I think people can pay for that and find this like sense of peace and wellness and rejuvenation. But to me, it's just much more interesting to create conflict inside myself and to see what comes out of it, because I know that now with the science, I'm literally changing my DNA. I'm literally changing and creating new genes from the circumstances of all of those things. I know I'm kind of turning a bit of circles here, but this is kind of all coming to me as I'm talking about it. And that's what these videos are about. Like the one question I get the most now, especially last week because of the post, is like that I'm promoting and like trying to sell my brand in some way. And like, I think that a lot of people just are projecting stuff that they hear from, you know, marketing or whatever. Like it was me talking about the things that I think are super interesting in life, selling my brand. Like maybe, fuck, I don't care. I don't know. Like that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I sit here and have these conversations with people, and they're great, but I have so much more to think about and say, and by sharing it with this camera and sharing it with the world, like when was there another time that we were able to do this? When was there another time that we were able to set up an iPhone or a device and in a matter of minutes have it shared with the world and see what comes out of it? It's fucking fascinating. It's so much fun to consider. So that's why I'm going to start doing this more, and that's why I've started doing this more. And this social experiment was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of fun now. It definitely wasn't fun all week because I kept getting these comments from people that I love and respect, and they were like, bro, you know, what are you doing? Or like, I thought you were someone else, I'm unfriending you. Like all these different super interesting things. And I'm like, like trying to wait, you know what I mean? Like, just wait a sec, like, let me explain. But like, no, I gotta stay, like, I gotta stick to this experiment. The idea was to see how far things get and who reacts and who responds. So, yeah. So, yeah, you're pretty much, you know, what I've learned from all this, the lesson that I'm pulling from all this is that you are essentially the consequence of all things that became, you are the consequence of all things that came before you and that you get exposed to. I'm going to say that again. So you are the consequence of all things that came before you and that you are exposed to. So, you know, we went from climate change and all that stuff, and that's a real topic, but that's not what this was about. This was about exposure. And I think that for me, I've been having this argument with a few people over there, debate, I should say, with a few people over at least the last year, and it's been about this like growth and this personal growth and how I don't like it. I don't think that it's a thing. I much rather face it either in a different way, but also I think that part of it is by not accepting what I just said earlier, by not accepting that you are the consequence of all things and that you are the consequence of all exposure to all things, and that you pigeonhole yourself into a place where you think that you are growing individually and you are not growing based on all of the things that you read, all of the people that you meet, all of the weather that hits you, all of the you know, the different energies in the areas that have influence over you, all of the music that you hear and overhear, all of the conflicts and debates that you go through. Like, those are the things that make you quote unquote grow. That, again, I don't like that word, but those are the things that continue to create you. And to have this idea that I'm going to go in this moment in time away from my life to go grow and then come back later, and this doesn't matter, me not seeing how beautiful this circumstance is or how these people are acting, and taking some of that for myself, and like not taking that but just taking this, and this is my personal growth and this is not, like, to me it just makes no fucking sense. So it's cool that I got to tie all this in based on making it an experiment all on giving an opinion on climate change. You know, that was pretty cool. And I hope that, like, in the near future, I want to steer away from recording monologues. I mean, this is cool, you know. I think that having these long rants where I get to really kind of figure out how I feel about an idea and do it live. Well, maybe not live or how you guys are seeing it, but live in my sense, you know, as I'm recording this and seeing what feels right. And you know, I got to see Edgar Tolle this year, and I know I speak fast because I have a lot of shit to say, and maybe I should say less because what I'm about to say next really hit home. And in his talk, he mentioned that, you know, if you can slow it all down, if you can slow down your words, and more importantly than just, and this is my interpretation of this, I don't think he meant so much in slowing down your words. I think he meant, because then what he said was, you need to feel between the words, because as you feel between the words, you're going to do like a bio loop feedback of yourself saying those words, and you're going to be able to understand how you feel about those words, and as you feel them, you get to have a type of reaction, or not reaction, I keep saying that, response, where you get to know whether or not you truly believe those words. And I think that what he meant was that if you can find that time and space between the words where you feel, that's the important part. And maybe he meant to slow it all down too, but I think that it's something that I practiced, and I have been practicing for a long time, is this feedback loop. That's why I have a hard time sometimes looking at the camera or looking at people when I speak, because I kind of loop back in and think about how I feel about the moment, and I kind of get caught up in it, and like it kind of closes around me, where I've been told that it's much better if you're going to speak and share, try to look at your audience and like really gauge how they're reacting, and then move through that space with them, right? Create this journey. So I'm going to definitely work on that, and I hope in the near future that I can create more dialogue, right? It'd be really fun to have anyone who sees this who's like, oh, this is a weird, interesting person, I'd like to have a conversation, and you want to record it and like create video and like share it. I'm not looking to make money. I'm not looking to get followers. I'm just looking for like one person who gives a fuck, right? And it's like, wow, this is cool. Let's have a real conversation. Let's create these like old stoic circles of deep intellect that used to be around for millennia, and now it's just like booty shaking fucking Instagram, FaceTime, Snapchat stuff. So yeah, it's exciting to me, you know. I think we should go there. I think that we should have those conversations. And two last things. I want to address the comments. It's been really weird to get hateful comments and a lot of sarcastic comments, a lot of hate. The hateful stuff is actually less bad. The sarcastic stuff sucks because it's usually your friends, right? And they're essentially telling you you're an idiot and that you should get your shit together, but they're doing it in a way where they're not being direct, and then there's the people that kind of care. But I had a couple comments that I just want to address personally. So if you're watching this and you watched the last one, or you commented and it was about a crypto, and it was oh, how's your crypto, or I thought you were a crypto expert, and it's first of all, I'm not an expert of anything, and anyone who claims to be an expert of something better really have their shit together, because if they want to claim it, you really have to know what the fuck you're talking about to its fullest extent. But can you be a connoisseur? Can you be someone who studies a practice or something? Of course you can. And this whole idea of needing to have a degree, I'm not saying not having a degree or having a degree is excellent or not excellent. I just think that there's so many ways to go about your life and to learn things and to use them, because we're getting into another topic here, but Alan Watts talks about this, and he talks about learning. And he mentions how we've gone from a place where we used to learn to actually learn the skill we needed to have to get the things we wanted done. And to learn because it was interesting to learn. And now we've in our society, through education and through universities, we've gotten to a place where we learn things to get a certain milestone or degree or piece of paper so that we can say that we've learned it. Not because we want to actually have the content and context to apply. So when people ask me oh, I thought you were an expert at this and that, it's I don't, first of all, that just rolls off, because I don't know what to respond to that, because it's okay, well, just, I'm studying it. If that's what you want me to say, I study it a lot, probably too much. So but this morning, I'm just going to address that comment with something that was posted on my good friend Dave. I'm not going to drop last names, but David's wall. And it was a quote from this writer, this American science writer called Robert Heinlein, and he said, a human being should be able to change. Human beings should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, which I didn't really understand what that meant, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze new problems, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specializing is for insects. I think I got that right. I think that was it. But the idea is specializing is for, the punchline is specializing is for insects. And so that's how I feel about that. If you're hitting on crypto, fuckers. So anyways, I thank you so much for watching this. Now you know why this whole thing this week happened with my post. And for all of you who hated, this is why I did it, so that I could see those reactions and see reactions in myself, really. And I just want to give kudos. I apologize in advance if I forget a couple people, but I want to give some serious kudos to a couple people that did respond to, and completely disagreed with my outlook, my fake outlook, or my very narrow outlook of the moment. And instead of reacting, they were very considerate and started either asking questions or came in a very civil manner for debate. Especially Curtis, that was pretty fucking dope what you did, and shared all that stuff. Kim as well. John, there's a couple people that really came in, with integrity, didn't back down, but came in with the understanding that this was to be a debate and not a fucking argument of with pitchforks. And that's for some of you that did that, you know, that's on you. So, all right. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed this monologue of me ranting about what happened over the last week or so. And I hope it was food for thought, you know, because that's what it is for me. It's I've got all these fucking thoughts, and I'm getting, you know, to a place where they're starting to like get powerful, and I just want to share them. And I think that there's a lot of really just interesting stuff in the world that's happening, and we're bandwagoning a lot on ideas and having to defend them, and not defend them in a way that's civil, but defend them in a way that's attacking and malevolent and malicious. So this was about that. This was about finding the space where we can expose that while I shave my own eyebrow in the process and put myself under the bus. So thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.